When Ashley asked me to speak, I was scared. Okay? I have made speeches and contributed to numerous local newspaper articles. I wrote about child health, talked about vaccines, food, COVID, suicide awareness and prevention, and I revealed some of my deepest thoughts and emotions in my personal blog. But when I write my blog, I cry. I cry when I write. But tonight I want to share my story, what it means to be a pediatrician, be a mom who grieves the loss of her son, and share my thoughts about Hope Ministries. I am hesitant and a bit scared because I've never devoted a talk about me. And I hope I find the best words and I'm not too emotional. I have to. So, research is a bit weak, but it is thought that childhood memories start around 2.5, 4 years of age. My first memory was falling down a flight of stairs at a funeral home. And the funeral home was probably in Hammond or somewhere outside of Chicago. And when you're Polish like I am, many of you have with your backgrounds, I'm sure. As a kid, your funeral home, as a kid, is where you get to meet with your cousins and you'll play around in the kitchen in the common area. And that's when the adults were in the reception room. But I remember we had to behave well when you were in that room. So in quiet remembrance, we would kneel at the casket. And when I was older, I'd be called up to see my relative laying at rest. They were older. They were great aunts, great uncles, and as far as I knew, they left this earth at a good old age, and it was the time. For me as a child, dying was done by old people. Family gathered and we got to play with cousins. Go forward many years, I experienced loved ones passing, but again, it was the expected time after the long fulfilled life. Now go really fast forward, I grew up, and off to med school I went. In med school, I never had a patient pass in front of me. I did not have to pronounce a patient's death. That came later during residency. They don't teach you in med school or residency how to talk about death or tell a family member that a loved one had passed. I did my residency in Phoenix, Arizona, and back in the 90s, there were only a few hospitals that had inpatient pediatric care. And children would be helicoptered in, but they also flew in medical airplanes to the hospital for their, it was because of great distance. I was a first-year resident, and one of our chronically ill patients, they had passed. I came on shift, and the senior residents had attempted to resuscitate this young child, but they could not save her. I was told, you need to call the parents, tell them their child had passed. They lived in Lake Havasu, and that was hours away, and I don't remember why they weren't at the hospital, but likely they had other children, and they couldn't stay at the hospital every day. This child was in for a while. But I remember calling them and thinking, what am I going to say? This is the worst thing to tell a parent their child is gone. I don't remember the exact words, but I remember holding it together and not getting emotional because it was not my place, it was their loss. And there was another patient loss that I remember during my residency. This one was much harder. And I know going into medicine, I would see death and expect that children do die. In medicine, you do your job. Emotions come later. You by yourself. You got work to do. No time for feelings or emotion. As a resident, you were there to work and learn to provide care. So we were called down from the Peace ICU to the ER. And I was a second-year resident, and thankfully my attending was available. The ER doctors wanted us there to care for a patient that was sent by a local pediatrician that had recognized that a young boy, around 4 years of age, had severe illness and had a rash that indicated meningococcemia. This is a life-threatening illness. Every minute matters. The pediatric office was literally across the street from the hospital. So we arrived. We had no protective gear on, we had no masks. The mother was holding her child, and I could tell he was very sick. He was covered in the rash, but he was awake. Within minutes, we started an IV, gave antibiotics, stat, but then suddenly he stopped breathing. We started CPR, we intubated, we started chest compressions, resuscitation meds. We coded for over 20 minutes, but he could not be saved. And back then, a parent was not present in the room when a child was being resuscitated. That has changed now. We do have a parent involved. But back then, the parent was taken to another room. And I remember, this is where everything. I remember my attending having to tell the mother her child was gone. And to this day, I remember her wailing and crying and calling out for her son. We had the chaplain enter and comfort the mom. But back to the Peace ICU we went. I was given oral rifampin since I was now exposed to a lethal bacteria and I became. But there was no discussion, there was no debriefing. We had patients in the ICU and they needed our care. And work was plenty. My peer residency, we had the worst winter for RSV. We had a month, and I remember this distinctly. Almost every morning we'd be called stat to the ER because an infant would be brought not breathing. And it was due to the virus, and many did not survive. Finished residency, and I moved back to the Midwest, back closer to family, and started in my first year of practice in Crown Point here. I started my family with my husband Scott, who's back in the bathroom. Okay. For 27 years now, I've been practicing pediatrics in Crown Point, and I love pediatrics because 98% of the time you don't deal with that. Most of the time you deal with preventive medicine. Sorry, adult medicine, it's hard. Us adults take way too many meds, we have too much medical history, and we don't listen to our doctor. Kids, on the other hand, they're fun, and most of the time they're okay with going to the doctor. Their parents listen and are genuinely interested in what we say, but sometimes we pediatricians, secret, let me probably know this, we have a harder time with you parents than the kids. I recently read an article on a doctor's website, and it talked about being a pediatrician. So here we go. You know you're a pediatrician when money is not the motivator for your job. We are second to public health physicians and the lowest paid. And you know you're a pediatrician if you're very versatile. Nothing smells bad to you anymore. You have been peed and pooped on more times than you want to admit. And you smell diapers and explore the poop in them. My husband's still amazed that I do that. You also get gifts of artwork saying, "I love you, Dr. Gold." Then you battle internet medicine and you bite your tongue when the kids, and yes, the parents, say the darkest things. And pediatric work is fun, but it's very busy. There's lots of crying in the office, but the smiles and the laughs that kids give you are priceless. When the hard and sad times are felt in our world of medicine, they are deeply felt. Just after the first year of practice here in Crown Point, I lost my first patient. He was 4 months old, and he was left accidentally in a hot car. I lost my Casey. He was age 10. He had brain cancer. and I got to experience his loving hospice care. I have attended many visitations and funerals, loss due to complications of cerebral palsy, prematurity, pneumonia, loss from muscular dystrophy, SIDS, car accidents, suicide, and even due to medical errors. Last year, I had the honor of helping a beautiful family who loved their infant Ari. And I helped with them guide her with hospice help to a slow return to our Heavenly Father. And this past January, I attended the visitation of a prior patient. Ashton was 19, and he died by suicide. 12 years ago, I had my first very personal loss. I lost my mom in a quick and unexpected passing. The shock of her gone, and just days after Christmas. Then a year and a few days later, we said goodbye to our father. My sisters and I had a slow goodbye over about 6 weeks. My sister Mary was at the helm of our ship to pull our parents' estate to harbor, and I was in charge of the photos. 51 years of marriage brings a lot of photos and memories. And up until 2012, I would say this was my first time I felt heartbreak in family passing. But even with parent loss, nothing prepares you for the loss of your child. Our first son, Nolan, he was a smart, funny, and ever-caring young man, and he hid his depression and anxiety during his high school years. When he left for Purdue to study engineering, he felt isolated due to his untreated depression and anxiety, and he made his first attempt. That's how we knew he had a problem. And we got him help. He was doing great this summer of 2016. He just turned 19, and he wanted to go back to school. He wanted to go to Valpo University. That's where many of his friends were studying. And at that time, we felt that we had our Nolan. Our Nolan had the best laugh, the best smile. He was back. But 30 days after he moved into the dorm, we had our hearts broken forever when we got the knock at our front door and we were told that Nolan took his life. Loss to suicide is different. It's not harder, but it's very different. The best way to make a person feel uncomfortable is talk about suicide. It is hard to understand or discuss. The person that was supposed to be in your life is gone. They lost hope. Now you walk without them. Life is forever before and after for me and Nolan's family. Before Nolan's death and now after. I had to go back to work 3 weeks after he died. Anyone who has grief knows how hard it is to focus and be normal. Because your prior normal is gone. This is your new normal. I have good compartmentalization skills, and I have to because I'm a doctor. But it is very hard to hold it together when a parent would ask how I was doing when I was at a visit with her child. I can't switch from a medical brain to my grieving mom brain. I was exhausted. I don't like to cry at work. I do now with you guys. In the beginning, I couldn't do it. And I don't like to cry in front of my patients. I don't find it professional. I cry a lot in the car, the shower, and on my days off. I know many of you can relate to it. Scott and I grieve differently. Men do grieve differently than women. I did therapy for a bit, and I found at times talking with friends helped. 8 days after Nolan passed, Ashley reached out to me. Prior to the date, she was not a friend, but a mom of my practice. If you know Ashley, she is persistent. She was and is still with me. It is not easy starting a friendship with someone that just lost a son to suicide. It's a roller coaster ride to be friends with someone that is new in their loss. My first year of grieving was exhausting. I know I was not thinking of my relationships and trying to communicate well. I was just trying to survive the day, survive the hour. Ashley's a good listener. Anybody who is grieving needs a good listener. Over the years, she would ask me how I was doing, what I was feeling or thinking, and she listened when I told her the good, the bad, and the ugly about grieving. She saw that I grieved much differently than Scott did, and does today. Back then, Ashley saw how hard it was, and still is, to raise Nolan's young brother, Sam, and watch him go from losing his only sibling at age 14 to becoming a young man. She saw my fear and anxiety I had when Sam turned 19. And she got to know Nolan. She never met him, but she got to know who he was and why I miss him so much. Ashley also heard my concerns for my patients. She heard my struggle with helping them with their mental wellness. Prior to Nolan's passing in 2016, I saw a continued increase in mental health diagnosis. Our children have more depression and anxiety than ever before. And now suicide is the second leading cause of death in persons aged 15 to 19 in the United States, second only to accidents. And I think you all would agree, children today have a greater and earlier exposure to the stressors of life. Even with our best efforts as parents, our children see and hear the evil, the hate, the things we wish we could shelter them from, at least until they're older. I have more patients now with ADHD, anxiety, depression, history of suicide attempts than I've ever had. Over the years of the COVID pandemic, I had more than 3 patients lose a parent suddenly, and many lost their grandparent or a very close loved one. Many of these deaths were thought due to COVID. And during many of these early months, these children did not have a routine of daily school attendance and socialization with each other. Kids may not be attending funerals and running around and playing with cousins like I did back in the 1970s. No, many kids know death and personal loss at a much earlier age. If not personally, they see the effect of loss on others. When Ashley told me that she was going to start a program for kids to start Hope, I knew she could do it. As she joined me in my grief journey, I knew I could walk with her in this mission to help children with their grief. We understand the benefit of the family working on their grief. When I counsel a family to support a child to be physically or emotionally healthy, I encourage the family to make changes and work as a collective. A child will heal and be well if they have the family involved in the process. To those who are here tonight, working on their grief, I promise that after some years, you will feel your grief has a beautiful dualism. Grief is sadness. Grief is joy, anger, and gratitude. Guilt and forgiveness, loneliness and togetherness. But grief is always love. Grief does not end, just as our love for who we miss does not end, but it does get soft. With Golden Hope, children learn what healthy grieving is. They carry forward the memory of their loved one. That person does not walk with them now in life, but they helped shape who they are and will be with them in spirit, watching over them as they continue on. And I end my talk tonight with gratitude. It's perfect for November. I believe before I was born, I worked out my plan for my life with God's watchful love and guidance. Nolan's passing by suicide was not written in my life plan. Yet I continue without his presence. I continue to live because I honor the gift of life, and I have commitment to my purpose, the direction my life is taking. I thank my family, my husband Scott, and my sister Mary, my mother-in-law Karen. They're here today. And I'm grateful to have my sister Angela and my son Sam. They could not be here tonight. I thank my compassionate friends family. I thank my many friends. And I thank my patients families that I have the honor of caring for the most important people in their lives, the children. I am blessed to be involved. May we leave here tonight honoring the loss of our loved ones, not focused on heavy hearts, but with the hope and promise that grief a child feels is understood as eternal love that will remain with them during their lifetime. Thank you.